So Spirit, through Reverend Laine, had a reading for this morning. So it comes from the book Shelter of the Sacred. It's a poem by Shiloh Sophia, and it's entitled Can You? And it just so happens it was part of this morning's meditation as well. So if you've heard it, I invite you to receive it again. Can you? Can you come from knowing without making others feel like they don't know what you know? Can you be in the presence of other people's mistakes without needing to bring them up to show what you know? Can you be intuitive without looking too far into other people's energy fields, especially without their consent? Can you speak your truth without needing to speak against another person's truth? Can you be with the messiness of another person's process and see the beauty in it without the desire to clean it up?
So when Brittany and I were sitting there, she said, "This is what I read in meditation." And I was like, it was for me, first of all, but I said, this sets up my lesson so beautifully. So thank you, Brittany. So as many of you know, if you've been around here, some of you don't, Terry and I hosted Remy at our house in Sarasota for a week, a couple weeks ago, so he could attend a special camp that was down there in that area near us. And we had a really fun week, and we planned several playful adventures, and we gave him new experiences and taught him new things. He's 12, so he's on that, that breaking into learning new things. Well, one of the things I taught him was a wonderful phrase that I want to introduce to you today. Okay, so here's how I remember it. So we were playing putt-putt. All right, so Terry and I golf. But this was one of Remy's first experiences with the idea of putting. So anyway, Terry was intent on showing him what she knew, how to help him, how to hold the club and how far to swing and all the things. And at some point I said, "Remy, this is a good moment to teach you a powerful phrase. Worry about yourself." Worry about yourself. So I travel with a group of friends, and it's perfect for a group traveling too. When someone wants to tell you what kind of omelet to order, worry about yourself. Or when they wonder where your passport is, when you worry about yourself, right? It's a perfect phrase for putt-putt too. We all should know that. It's a phrase that I'm finding more and more useful throughout my life. But man, I wish I knew it and had learned it a long time ago. So yesterday was my younger brother Ron's birthday. He turned 60. That's hard to fathom because I haven't seen him in a very long time. Probably 12 years or so. I'm not quite sure how long it's been. But the circumstances around our estrangement are kind of complicated. But I think it's a universal story that I'm willing to tell because it might help somebody else, right, by my sharing it today. So I've been asked, some of you have asked me many times, we talk about relationships a lot around here, and I get the question, well, Laine, what's your most complicated relationship, challenging relationship? And almost always I will bring up my younger brother as my most troubled relationship. And our relationship obviously began 60 years ago. And throughout the years, it has played out in ways that reflect changing dynamics as time has gone on. And of course, I can only tell you my side of the story. I can only share memories from my perspective, and I'm sure he would have loads to share from his own perspective. But I'm sharing mine because it illustrates the journey as my consciousness and spirituality grew over time, and I made different choices inside this relationship with this one and with others. That's when I knew better, I did better, and eventually I learned to worry about myself. So Ron and I started out as siblings born 2 years apart, growing up in an unpredictable and sometimes violent household filled with my father's rage and really extreme religiosity and lots of emotional manipulation and abuse. And of course, there were good days. You know, we have good memories and we have hard times too. But my memories of my childhood are kind of a mixture of both. But overall, it was pretty difficult. And all of it impacted all of us in different ways and to different extremes. And basically, when I look back, I can see that we were all kind of in survival mode. We were using whatever strategy we could to get through it all and escape. And I survived by being a perfectionist. You know, I was a straight A student, and I escaped through extracurricular activities at school, and I took on the role of the good girl in the family. I was the good one, right? And when I was kind of doing that, Ron was coping by resisting any rule my dad put in place. He would break it. He was rebelling against any kind of control, and he was constantly getting in trouble as the bad boy at home and at school, for that matter. And I was distancing myself from all of that as much as I could to keep the trouble from splashing onto me. Like, I don't want anything to do with all of that. So to further complicate our connection, all of us were kind of pitted against each other. But at the same time, we were taught to worry about each other, because when one of us got in trouble, we all got in trouble. So it was a very mixed message we got. And my older brother and I somehow managed to bond a little bit better, but that left my younger brother feeling even further left out. And he somehow became my father's scapegoat whenever tensions became too high. And the bottom line is Ron had a very difficult time growing up, and quite frankly, I didn't help the situation much at all. I always thought I knew the best way to survive, and he was blowing it, right? So during Ron's teenage years, my father descended into his terminal cancer journey, and my mom was obviously focused on taking care of my dad. And my older brother had already gotten married and kind of left the situation younger, and I had left for college. So my younger brother was adrift, kind of on his own, from my perspective anyway. And he finished high school in a blur. He tried to go into the Navy, and he started trying to figure out his own adult life on his own. And all I knew from a distance was that his life looked really, really hard, and my heart was full of judgment about all of his choices. So without a family structure to kind of hold us together, Ron and I had very little contact over a decade or so around that time, and he was coping with addiction issues, and that led him down the path of typical addiction issues. He had troubled relationships, he had legal challenges, and he just had this whole lack of stability in creating an adulthood that he could live in. And I wasn't very close to the life he was building. But because our mother and grandmother were central in my life, Ron kept coming around because he would be around them. He would come to family gatherings or special occasions or whatever, so I would see him, and it kept our sibling relationship alive on some level. As you know, I was busy with my career and raising my daughter and doing all the therapy, healing, and spirituality stuff that I was doing. It kind of seemed we were heading in opposite directions, basically. So as the years went on, it became clear to me that I was functioning at a higher level than he was. I viewed my role in his life as his helper of sorts. I was trying to be as loving and generous as I could find a way to be, right? First of all, I was happy to share way too much advice. You know, I thought I was helping him because I would help him find work, and I would even give him money. I just tried to keep the peace. And underneath all of that, I was condescending and full of inner judgment. Somehow I thought my life was good and his life was not, and the only role available to me was one of being the savior. And I certainly didn't know my own phrase, worry about yourself, yet. But somewhere along the line, I woke up to the spiritual reality that Ron's life was none of my business. I was finally able to see that his soul was in charge of his lifetime, and my soul was in charge of mine, and my role was not to save him from the consequence of his choices, but to try to lovingly witness him through them. I could be generous with him, but release my attachment to the outcome of that generosity. I could extend love to him and his son for that matter, but not need for anything to change. I could indeed worry about myself and allow him to worry about himself. It was a fine line to walk between witnessing him and enabling him. I have to confess that. And then I saw him for the last time when he was arrested and sent to prison for several years on drug-related charges. And I visited him at the jail before his sentencing. And that was the last time I saw him. And we exchanged a few letters during some of his incarceration time because I was trying to keep some sort of love flowing. But over the years, they just kind of stopped. And from his perspective, I was probably not much use to him because I couldn't help him in that world that he was in. And by the time he was released, I was in ministerial school and I had much clearer understanding of the concepts of addiction and my enabling behavior, and I knew better how to set a firmer boundary. And so at the time of his release, he called and he wanted me to just pick up where we left off, and he wanted me to be his rescuer and problem solver at that time. And my loving refusal to play that role angered him irreversibly, it seems. So I loved him enough to want him to find his own strength, to create his new life structures that would support his sobriety, to figure all that out and build his life as a man who could stand on his own 2 feet. I trusted his life to him and to God, not to my own strengths and my opinions and my solutions and my ideas. And as a result of that kind of firm boundary, his decision has been to cut off all communication with me. So I so badly want him to understand my boundary. And I also want to so badly understand the wall that he needs. But again, I must respect him and respect that he owns his part of the relationship and he has full control of his side of the tennis net, so to speak. And this relationship with Ron has been a lifelong lesson for me. It's a mirror that I look into, and sometimes I've liked my reflection, and sometimes I've wondered if I'm being the right kind of big sister to him. How he sees me is not my concern because I can't change how he sees me, but how I see myself is 100% my concern. And over the years, I've been able to sit with the truth that I have loved him to the best of my ability at every point along the way. When I knew better, I did better. Even if he can't agree with what is better, I must know it for myself. And if he remains angry at the boundaries I put in place when he was released, that's a perspective I can't change. You know, if he refuses to have more communication, I accept that is his need to set a boundary for himself. And I can respect that even though that is not what I want. It's hard because, as you can imagine, I just want love to kind of flow back and forth, and mine just kind of splashes off his wall. It's blocked. But the good news that as I hear from other family members that he's doing very well, and he has rebuilt his life without drugs and has created some stability for himself. And occasionally on family Zoom calls, I kind of get to see for myself that he's going on with his life, and I get to sneak in some love for him here and there. And I pray for the opportunity to connect in the future, but I want to be careful to not get attached to the desire for him to wake up and understand why I did what I did at different points in our lives. And whenever I talk about this, lots of people have opinions about what I should do next and what I should do, and have questions about my motives at every turn. But I know my heart and my willingness to do the work and to heal, and explaining that to others is sometimes hard. But it's just another moment for me to say, worry about yourself, right? So how do I sit in this relationship today in my heart? My brother and I are externally and eternally connected, and I accept that truth. And I trust that if we do not rebuild something in this lifetime that we can share, I expect that we could choose to do that in another one. I sit in the consciousness of love when I think about him, or I talk about him. I pray for him, and I know good things are his birthright, and and I hold him in the light in my mind. I respect his boundaries, and yet I still remain open for change to be possible. I stand at the ready to apologize for any pain he feels in our shared memories, and I release him to the divine. So I have to share last night, as I said, yesterday was his birthday. I texted him, I look back, I've texted him on his birthday every year, and sometimes he writes back thanks, and sometimes he doesn't. Well, I texted him yesterday, and we were at the vet with Maisie last night, and his name pops up on my phone that he's calling me, and I'm literally handing my dog to the person to take him to do surgery, and I'm like, ah. And Terry's like, you can step out and take the call, and I'm like, no, I need to take care of my dog right this minute. So I texted him, I'll call you right back, and I was so excited. And then I called him back, he didn't answer, and it went to voicemail. His voicemail was full, and so I said, if that wasn't a butt dial, call me back. I would really like to talk to you. And so even yesterday, my heart surged with hope that maybe we could connect.